Hey, what's up guys? How are you doing? This is Rob of Rule of Two Review. Welcome back, and man, these Nintendo Switch sales are insane. So I know that this is news that a lot of you are probably already familiar with, but it's obviously pretty cool and something I was excited to talk about. We're talking about sales from Nintendo. We're talking about the Nintendo Switch and Super Smash Bros. Ultimate, and right now everything looks so super good for Nintendo and the Switch and for Smash Bros. It is really exciting. It's great to see. It's kind of expected, but when you get something that feels a little bit more official, it just feels that much better. So earlier today, Nintendo actually revealed and confirmed that the Nintendo Switch is officially the fastest selling video game system of, quote, this generation, thanks to reports and numbers coming from the NPD, and then they also shared some really awesome Smash Bros. Sales, which I'm going to get into in a minute. And I know a lot of you guys know I don't really typically cover sales that often. I know I did in a video recently, and I said the same thing, I don't cover sales that often, but it's really true. This just happens to be another story that came right after that last one, where talking about sales actually makes a lot of sense, and like I said, it's really exciting. So basically what it looks like has happened is in the first 21 months on the market, so going from the launch of March last year in 2017 to November of this year, 2018, the Switch has sold in the US, according to the NPD, 8.7 million units. And that is more than the PlayStation 4 and more than the Xbox did when they were essentially the same age. So in their first 21 months on the market compared to the Switch's first 21 months, the Switch has sold more, 8.7 million units. And that is great to see. Now, of course, there's a couple of things to consider. One of them is, as far as we know, when we look at worldwide sales, we know that we're looking at something between 20 and 25 million. We don't seem to have any official numbers, at least that I see, or that Nintendo themselves are reporting in that respect. But it's interesting to see what seems to be the US market at almost 9 million units sold. And then we know that, there's something in the range of like 12, 13, 15 million more units sold across the rest of the world. And at the end of the day, it just means that the Nintendo Switch is kicking ass and doing super well. And it feels really good to be able to finally say this for the first time in a long time for a Nintendo console. In fact, we can look at the tweet from Nintendo that actually confirmed some of this today before the kind of story broke and a lot of other articles started covering some of the hard numbers. But here their tweet reads, "Thanks to all the fans for making Nintendo Switch the fastest selling video game system of this hardware generation. You've also made Smash Bros. Ultimate the fastest selling Super Smash Bros. Game in the series and for the system to date. It's a great time to own a Nintendo Switch." Well, I happen to agree with that. So yeah, that's basically what they said, and this is so great to see. So many records being broken. It really kind of exemplifies this awesome new, powerful, seemingly unstoppable era of Nintendo and everything that they're doing different and right with the Switch compared to a lot of mistakes they made in previous years and previous generations. And I mean, don't get me wrong, it's not like everything is perfect from Nintendo right now, or even for the Switch. It's not a console without its own flaws or holes in the library, for example, absolutely. But I mean, again, when you compare to maybe some recent mistakes in generations from Nintendo, they're doing amazing. And I love to see that the gaming public and the world and the consumer is really just buying into what Nintendo is selling, and beyond that, that the product is as good as advertised and justifies its success. Now, one of the other things that I think maybe some of us think about, I know that I definitely do, is the idea of the Switch being considered a current generation console, I guess. We haven't necessarily seen the term 8th generation thrown out too much when discussing this story in the Switch, but I do think that the implication when even Nintendo, we're not even talking about other articles and other outlets talking about lumping the Switch in with the current generation of consoles, even Nintendo says it's the best selling of this current hardware generation. Now for me, that totally works and rings true, but I've even discussed this on the channel as well in the past, and people get pretty heated about defending their stances on this, so I wanted to address it for a minute. The idea of really what generation, quote-unquote, we want to consider the Nintendo Switch to be. Is it an 8th generation? Is it a 9th generation machine? And all this kind of stuff. As I've talked about before, my personal opinion is, I think most importantly, I don't think it super has to matter. At the end of the day, a great system, a great console from any machine is great, and that's all it has to be. And so we have our own sort of artificially created labels that we put on these things. This is really just a consumer construct, the idea of it's this generation or that. But it really doesn't truly matter, provided that the product is good, And I think that people's defense of this idea came from when the Wii U came out, And there were a lot of people, in my opinion, wrongly trying to state that it wasn't a current gen or a next generation machine because they didn't feel like it was powerful enough to just make them happy with their graphics needing abilities and all that kind of thing. And I always said, and many Nintendo fans said that, yeah, that is what the Wii U was. And coming off of that, and now with the Switch, and people say, well, okay, it's Nintendo's 9th generation machine, so that's what it is. It's next generation. It's 9th generation. Don't you dare call it 8th generation. But there is an argument to be made, and this is more where I fall in line, that it technically counts as a current generation or 8th generation machine, not because I don't acknowledge that, yes, it's Nintendo's 9th generation, but because I think when you look at generations in terms of a period of time where things coexist harmoniously together, that's where we see the Nintendo Switch being more current with the PS4 and Xbox One, which are 8th generation machines still going, and the Switch is going along right alongside of those, and then it's even going to change again in the next year or two anyway. And so, you know, not to get too caught up in this tangent, I do think that it's an important thing to address, and some people have talked about this in their conversations about this story. You know, I'm totally fine just buying it as it is, man. The way Nintendo says it, and other outlets have said it, it's a current generation or 8th generation machine, and when comparing it to its competition, the 8th gen PS4 and the 8th gen Xbox One, these are the sales that it's done, and it's done way better than those. And even though I love the PlayStation and Xbox, this is just awesome to see. Then, of course, we have Super Smash Bros. Ultimate, and holy freaking crap, you guys. This game reportedly has sold 3 million units in 11 days. That is mind-blowing. And I know it doesn't necessarily compare to like Red Dead Redemption that came out in October that had like 17 million units in like 10 minutes or whatever it did. And it's like, okay, we get that. It's a little bit different of a situation. It's releasing to maybe like a wider audience and definitely more people and more consoles between the Xbox and PlayStation. But at the end of the day, for a console that's less than 2 years old, and that has, like we said, somewhere between 20 and 25 million units on the market, it essentially sold so many units in just a week and a half that it is mind-blowing. And Nintendo considers themselves the best-selling software manufacturer and developer in the industry right now, and while I don't think that we all have all of the hard numbers, I would certainly believe that. You know, I think a lot of people who pay attention to what's happening in the industry would tend to say that, yeah, Nintendo seems to be killing it, man. Their first-party stuff does insane. I mean, Breath of the Wild already sold 10 million units. Mario Odyssey sold 10 million units. So many other first-party titles from Nintendo have sold in the millions. And now that we have Super Smash Bros. Being the fastest-selling Smash Bros. Game of all time, which is a big deal when you look at the sales of Brawl especially, and it's also the fast-selling game on the Switch, which is the fastest-selling console, and with a console with so many other record-breaking sales from other first-party Nintendo games, I mean, it just really shows what's happening right now with the Switch as a console, with Smash Bros. As a series, and really just with Nintendo as a company, man. They're doing so fantastically. And I mean, I don't want to beat this dead horse, but I just have to say how good it feels, man. And coming off of the Wii U years, which a lot of you know, I love the Wii U to this day. I think it's a great console. Flawed? Yes. A failure in sales? Absolutely. But I still think it's a great console with a great library. However, at the end of the day, even I can admit, those were dark years, man. That was a dark and really rough 4.5 years for Nintendo. And myself and any other Nintendo fans that stuck with it and stuck through Nintendo this whole time and never gave up are really seeing the rewards from Nintendo and are seeing a great resurgence for the company, going from the Wii, like the second most best-selling console video game like hardware ever, you know, and then to go through the dark Wii U years, and then to come out the other side with what seems to be kind of keeping pace with that Wii with the Switch right now. It's pretty awesome, man. And does this mean that the Switch is necessarily going to match the sales of the Nintendo Wii? A lot of people want to say yes. I've shared my opinion on this before. I really don't think that the Switch will be around long enough to reach the Wii numbers. So I still want to say no, it won't. But honestly, as long as it's keeping pace, and as long as it's a success within its own right, in its own bubble, and compared to its own snapshot in time where it exists compared to other consoles, that's what matters the most. It doesn't have to beat the Wii to be a successful or a groundbreaking or revolutionary console for Nintendo. Like, it just doesn't have to. honestly, most consoles don't sell that much. That's why the Wii is the second most selling, and we still consider the 360, PS3, and the PS4 and whatnot huge successes. So I think the Switch is doing A-okay. So what do you think about this, man? Do you think that this is as awesome as I do? I mean, to tell you the truth, I feel like everyone is going to feel like this is awesome, unless you're a non-Nintendo fan. I think only non-Nintendo fans would find this to be bad news, or negative news, or news that doesn't make them happy or excited. And honestly, we don't care about those people. I don't want to hear from you, man. I'm talking to my fellow Nintendo fan and my fellow gamer who just likes everything that happens in the industry, like myself. Here we have an awesome company, one that happens to be my favorite, with a great piece of hardware on the market, and its sales are justifying its quality and its library, and it's great to see. And how about that Super Smash Bros., man? So unstoppable. I love to see a new record being set with Smash Bros. Fastest selling game on the Switch. I mean, could this be the best-selling game on the console by the end of its life? Maybe. It's probably more going to turn out to be something like Pokemon, which is fine, I guess. But either way, it's obviously a record-breaking title, and the Switch is a record-breaking console, and it's a wonderful time for Nintendo and Nintendo fans. So what do you guys think? Discuss Nintendo and the sales for the Switch and Smash below. That's going to be it for me. Thanks as always for tuning in, guys. This is Rob of Ro2R Review, and I'll catch you next time on another video.